It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we begin a Friday.
Oh my.
What a day.
As I was telling you, I know, just crazy. As I was telling you right before we went on the air, I look up, there's like a minute before we go on the air, I look at you and I said, I'm just never ready anymore. The news comes in so quick that I'm never ready.
Right.
And that's the bad part of it is, what time? I went to sleep at 4:30 in the afternoon, and I slept great. I woke up at 10. I wake up at 10, I'm like, I'm lost.
No, I know.
There's so much new
and
stuff.
throughout the day, the reaction, the liberals are just they're just bouncing off of everything, you know. Tulsi Gabbard sworn in, RFK Jr. sworn in. The liberals heard swearing in, and they said, blankety blank, I'm in.
Let me play part of this protest from the other day. Okay.
All right.
Because this is Emmanuel Cleaver out of Missouri.
Okay.
So here we go.
All right. Okay.
Now, I'm going to be quick because I want to send a message to somebody. Elon, take your musty millions and musty Moscow rights to the moon. Because if you don't, we're going to stand up, we're going to speak out, we're going to march, we're going to do anything we need to do to make sure that the people of this country understand that the CFPB is for them. You get your musty hands off of our money or go to Moscow. You musty moo.
You must have moo. I read the quote, by the way, in the headline, and they put it in the headline that I read. They put it in quotations. You must have moo. And I'm like, what?
Must have moo.
Wait a minute, what?
They're not even making sense.
Yeah. You know, you got to be, again, the rank and file's got to be watching this going, come on. This is your response.
What I wonder was Cleaver saying, all right, everybody's cursing. I have to just make up phrases now that aren't cursing because apparently cursing isn't working for us.
Yeah, all right. Well, I was kind of hopeful, actually, that it would, you know. We could all just start cursing. Everybody just, it's just going to be the norm. It's been when I saw that yesterday, I thought to myself, okay. And there's other parts of that same event, other people at that same event that Cleaver was at, that were, I don't know if at some point during this morning's show we can kind of describe what they said, but they said it wrong or they are really infatuated with the president. I don't know. You and I didn't actually go over that during the pre-show meeting because, it was bizarre. And the whole musty moo thing was, and I'm like, seriously. They need to do, like you said, the opposite of what Senator Kennedy said, and that is don't put down the bong, pick up the bong, you know, or do the opposite of what you've been doing. If you've been picking up the bong, put it down. If you haven't been, you should pick it up. Because
there's been some great quotes this weekend there.
Gosh.
Put down the bong.
Put down the bong. You must be moo. What?
You know, my favorite thing yesterday was when when Trump announced that they're going to do the study now on tariffs, and it's going to be 180 days before they think of what they're going to do with reciprocal tariffs.
Right.
That's because, as we talked about earlier this week, and it actually started last week, where Trump finally admitted tariffs hurt the American people.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've got business just going crazy on it. So one of the pressures that he's feeling is from the Republicans in Congress. You know, and you look at it, you know, they talk about 80-20 in the polls.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing where he's underwater on is tariffs.
Right.
And Republicans in Congress, that's why they're so quiet. They don't want it. And the business community is just hitting him big time. And so he flinched again. He blinked again yesterday by really delaying it for 7 months. Because one of the things, and we talked about this yesterday, that the Republicans are concerned about is you're putting all this stuff that's anti-growth in before we've got the growth stuff in.
Right.
We don't have, we haven't done this yet. Hold off on this. And that's what they did by saying, all right, we're going to put together a report that will be due April 1st, and then there'll be 180 days to decide what we're going to do. So that's almost, that's 7.5 months.
Right. And if you look at it, look.
And well, but that's before we get to that, I wanted to just get to my point. Caitlin Collins asked him about tariffs, and apparently she didn't, from CNN. He goes, we didn't ask you to talk yet. Right. And I'm thinking to my, basically have some decorum, damn it. I'm Donald Trump, and I'm about decorum. And I'm
exactly
dying laughing, going, she's got to be burning inside, going, he's basically telling me that I have to behave. Right. Oh, that was the best part. But go ahead.
I mean, it's the way he's actually taunting the media now.
I know.
He used to say it before, and everybody used to, just kind of look away and go, "Oh, okay, not a good moment." Now it's everybody's laughing. It's almost become a bit. But you have in place now the situation where, all right, you looked at what the populist type moves would be on tariffs. All right, China, right? Your ever-populists will say, well, no, China, and we need to go after them, China. By the way, there are legitimate reasons we need to have tariffs in place against China. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt. Reciprocal tariffs, man, if they're making it impossible, and just going through the roof on tariffs there from American goods, then we need to reciprocate.
Right.
Those are populist tariffs that you can get away with.
But the problem was, and the discussion, you saw it, especially in conservative magazines and conservative blogs, is they're viewing VAT taxes as tariffs.
Taxation. That's the thing that changed yesterday, actually.
And that's what, and they're like, and then the business industry say, these are VAT taxes.
Right.
Are we now going to, we're going to hit, now we don't have a federal sales tax here.
Right.
But if we decide to go to a federal sales tax, is that a tariff?
Well,
and so that discussion's going on. But the fact is, it's not about the VAT tax. It's about, will the tariff hurt American business? And so I'm happy because I've talked about that Trump has changed, and Trump is willing to listen. Mm-hmm. And he did back in 2016, 2017, when he listened to Steve Moore and
Kudlow.
And Kudlow, and the admission, because during the campaign, you heard it. Tariffs are wonderful. They're absolutely fantastic.
Right,
and and now he's backing off. And I think the inflation numbers scared them.
Yeah.
I think the inflation numbers the other day, as we talked about yesterday, and got into a discussion on it. And it really, we talk about, if you have economic growth, and I didn't understand where you were going yesterday. We actually agree completely because we in the first hour.
Right.
I just wasn't sure where you were going, and it might have caused some confusion.
Ultimately, it's what we have talked about before, I guess was my point on the, how do you satisfy and we know it's an unrealistic thought to expect prices to start to come down. Well, there should have been a stronger education on that, and shouldn't have been a promise of bringing prices down. It should have been expanding your buying power. This is the thing that we have focused on over the years. Right. And Trump did that in his first term, even before we hit record inflation for a generation.
And we talked about that, when you look at normal expansion of the economy, if you're talking about just the creation of goods, if you have inflationary pressures caused by government policy, because that's the kind of, really bad inflation that we saw.
Right.
What do you do at that point? That's one of the reasons that they raise the interest rates is to, slow down the economy a little bit. But you and I then got into it, and I don't mean that we fought, but we got into the discussion about the fact, but there's two things that make the economy go. There's producing more products, and then there's the efficiency in creating those. There's the productivity, as we talked about.
Yeah.
Productivity has slowly been going up, and you and I look at it and say, and yesterday and said, okay, how fast do they think that AI, like this year and next year and the year after that, in the next 4 years, they talk about AI giving us productivity we've never seen before.
Right.
Well, that's the kind of economic growth. You have less man hours to produce a particular product, and that is what creates the product, the huge productivity. For example, and I just thought about this now, this popped into my mind. I would love to see once, because it had to take a while, once mass production happened, because mass production changed everything, for example, with Henry Ford. Once you started doing that, what was the productivity? And again, we're talking about a society that may have been industrial, but wasn't close to being the economy we have today with industry, service, tech, and everything else.
Right.
But I'd like to look back at what was the productivity. Did they keep stats on productivity when you brought in manufacturing? Because then you could produce vehicles a lot quicker, and producing a lot quicker meant, even though there were jobs because you were able to produce more cars, the efficiency, it's the combination of producing more of that product with so much more incredible efficiency, where you still hired a ton of workers, but what it took to produce that vehicle took a lot less time, which is a lot less man hours.
Yeah, and right now, not having enough humans to fulfill, basically be the basis of that kind of growth that's needed to expand wealth and expand the buying power of every American family like we want to happen, is going to be the concern. And the question would be, how much of AI or any type of efficiency put in place in the process of anything, producing anything or any goods and services along the way is going to be critical. We saw this in the oil industry when, they were changing how they were drilling, horizontal drilling, all these things that changed in the technology and the process of production. And this is something that the private sector obviously is best at, and we'll see where it goes with AI. I'm pretty fascinated with it because we look at things like, when you have already a shortage of workers in certain industries, you have shortage of workers in the medical field. There's AI, all these ideas about AI and how it can create efficiencies so that nurses aren't doing so many clerical things. They're actually focused on the patient treatment, right? Doctors, the same thing, of course. And then you could look at, a number of intuitive measures put into place in any given process. Diesel techs. There's a shortage of diesel technicians and has been for a while. And, that is always a hands-on job. It's always going to be. But AI can create the efficiencies and diagnosis and everything else. And you're already seeing that. You're seeing, if you want to call it AI or the computers that we have now, the trucks that they're building, Class 8 trucks, the cars that we're driving. All these techs now have so much information because of that. Now, we can, on the other side of that, we can talk about the inefficiencies of trying to, take a 4-cylinder and make it do what an 8-cylinder is supposed to do. But it's, that comes from the government mandates we talked about. The OEMs shouldn't be forced to go down this road of creating something because the government says so. Where's the demand? Where is the demand? I saw where the RAV4 took over as the number one vehicle sold, took over the F-150 spot, which had been on the top for a long, long time. My question would be, how much of that is because you had fewer people buying an F-150 because there was concern? I don't know. By the way, the Ford CEO came out and talked
about what?
A concern about how trucks are handling and the new trucks and all the bad things that are, again, taking a 4-cylinder. I don't think they make a F-150 4-cylinder, but a 6-cylinder and try and making it do what an 8-cylinder is supposed to do. There have been a lot of issues on that front,
And that combined with the price.
Right, exactly. And all of these things that are in place where if the government stepped back and we truly pulled back on regulations and set it as a policy where we're, sending that to the rest of the world, hey, we're open for business. That's the idea, and let the OEMs get back to competitive pricing. But man, right now it's so insane. I wouldn't want to inherit anything of what Biden left behind.
No, it's horrible.
But
It's horrible what Trump was left with.
Yeah, but if anybody can do it, it's not just Trump, but his team right now that's in place that has been pretty proactive on every front, pretty much.
Not a bad segment for when we were going into it. I looked at you and said, I have no idea where to start.
Exactly. Right.
866-90-RED-EYE.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Tires command a lot of attention. As a top expense for drivers and a leading cause of CSA violations, any tire maintenance practice that can help extend tire life is worth consideration. Consider tire balancing, which can set you up for savings and a smoother ride before your tires touch the highway. Tire balancing corrects an uneven distribution of weight in tires and wheel assemblies, but the trick is to be proactive and not reactive. Conduct routine pre- and post-trip tire inspections and pay special attention to inflation. Tires with too little air will wear prematurely and create more resistance, which can result in increased fuel consumption, a harsher ride, and ultimately lead to a blowout.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So yesterday afternoon, just to talk on media coverage, yesterday afternoon, about an hour before I went to sleep, I started, scanning all the different stories out there, grabbing the phone and scanning, see what's out there. And I saw, okay, Trump initiates tariffs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right.
And I went through a number of articles, Trump, and I said, well, I already know what the issue is. I don't need to read the article. I'll read the latest when I get into work.
Right.
Because
it'll change.
Well, yeah, exactly. It'll change. And I know we already talked about the reciprocal tariffs yesterday, and
right.
I know, what I knew what the plan was.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, he initiated it. Well, he didn't initiate it.
Right.
All the headlines were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Every single headline, I woke up and went, what do you mean? He's delayed the tariff. All the headlines were saying he initiated it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, no, he actually put in a plan that's like, okay, we're going to study it. We're going to study it till April 1st, and then we'll decide what to do over the next 180 days.
Yeah, right.
Well, okay, well, that's 6 months, 7 months, 7.5 months.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you've delayed it 7.5 months. That's not.
Yeah.
That's not instituting the tariffs. You're going to study the tariffs. So
right.
I really think that the inflation numbers affected the White House. I really do.
Yeah, I think there's that. I think also that corporate America knows, I think, that they've got the president's ear.
Yeah.
They did to some extent in the first term, but now more than ever. And they don't have to, those CEOs don't have to ask permission anymore. Like we talked about this before. It's a very different scenario than it was during his first term. Whereas a CEO, you got to be careful if you even bring Trump's name up. Well, that's all gone. They can now, if they want to bend his ear on things, and just, again, send a message. They all have their lobbying in different ways, but I think it's a more direct approach because he knows a lot of these CEOs. And so I think there's that. I think the inflation numbers, realizing that we kind of laid out the conundrum, right, yesterday. And it's an extremely difficult move. You want to move quite the opposite direction. You want to try and do everything you can on inflation to bring it down. And tariffs won't help.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. In this edition of More Proof that Democrats are idiots, we have an audio cut here from Representative Jan Schakowsky of Illinois, the Democrat, suggesting why more women don't go into manufacturing. Mm-hmm. I've been saving this one a couple of days. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's been so busy we haven't had time to play it. Here it is.
Yesterday, I met with a manufacturing company, but they also are engaged in getting young people more engaged in manufacturing. So I asked them, so how many of those students that are signing up and want to do this, how many are women? And they said, well, I know there's at least 13% or something. It was a low number. And you had mentioned trying to engage more women in manufacturing. I'm just wondering if just the name manufacturing sounds like a guy.
You know,
I can't.
Listen.
I can't handle it anymore. You know,
I just want to apologize. Chicks are going to hate what I'm going to say.
It's like, man, it has man in it, and so women are turned off because they can't figure out that manufacturing is making things. They think it has something to do with a man, so they're turned off.
And ironically, she's clearly not concerned about making women look stupid, you know, by being the example.
Oh, my gosh. I always think I could do the show 7 days a week, but when I hear stuff like that, it's like, no, I do need a weekend.
Well,
I need a weekend to recuperate from absolute stupidity.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... And every day it's something new. You know? Okay. It's like, it really is much like having children, young children. True story. One of my daughters, when she was very young, she woke me up in the middle of the night and said, Daddy, I super glued my shirt to my arm. I don't even know how that happens. But something you're not expecting. You wake up, your child has super glued, in the middle of the night somehow, their shirt to their arm. That's exactly like the Democrats today. What's going to happen next? I can't tell you. You can take all the super glue off of Capitol Hill. Something's still going to go wrong. None of this is in the playbook. None of this is in the political playbook. Remember, years ago, what's his name saying, well, shouldn't we be concerned that Guam is going to tip over?
Oh, yeah.
Now, I was almost born on Guam. And because of my huge head, you know, my mom flew to Nebraska because my dad was being stationed at Offutt Air Force Base, and they were moving. They had lived in Guam for I don't know how long, a couple of years maybe. And so they were moving. And I think they convinced my mom, listen, we've seen the sonogram, and his head could tip over Guam. That I would believe. They just said, we were really concerned about that. Yeah, actually, I get it. It is every day. It is every day.
Well, is that why there aren't as many women in management?
Management, right, exactly. Manufacturing. I have to think it's the word. You guys always do on the left.
I mean, it's
the
exactly.
words.
It's
the
the
words
word.
aren't the problem.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Here's another one.
All right.
This is, again, one of my favorites from you. I don't know whether this happened yesterday or happened the day before, but I saw it yesterday. And this was protesters interrupted a House hearing on USAID spending, demanding that funding be restored to a particular program. All right?
Yeah.
Ready for this?
Wow.
Here we go. And they're chanting, and security's taking them out, and they're chanting very loud. And the end is the best. Here we go.
I am a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. I previously served at the U.S. Agency for International...
PEPFAR saves lives! Restore AIDS funding now! 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 PEPFAR saves lives! Restore AIDS funding now!
I guess these guys don't watch the news. They didn't realize that PEPFAR was one of the many programs that did prove to be life-saving, so the funding was restored. Somebody better give them a link to, I don't know, maybe Fox News or something like that. You may resume your opening statement.
I love it. It's the best response ever. It's already done.
By the way, sorry for that whistle. I know if you were driving, so like, what the?
Yeah.
But
sounded like a weird fire alarm, didn't it?
yeah, it did.
Because when I heard it yesterday, and I was like, whoa, what was that noise? Was that on the video? Yeah. All right. Restore funding now. We already did that. Okay. We'll be right back.
You know,
With whatever we're going to protest.
I'm going to have to go back and watch PCU.
Yeah.
Was done in like in '94,
Yeah.
and it's as with Jeremy Piven in it. Yeah, I'm sorry,
Right.
He is just the best in that movie, the absolute best.
Yeah.
And this came out in like '94, and so he's taking the young kid around the campus, and there's protesters all over the place, and he's like, and he goes, "These are what you call cause heads."
Yeah.
They'll protest anything. And as they're walking through, it's like, don't eat meat, whatever. And all of a sudden, free Nelson Mandela. It was like, he's already free.
Yeah, it's already happened. Right. I love that.
Oh, my gosh.
We'll just do a classic protest, Let women vote. Let women vote. Why not?
Well, look,
right?
We as a nation aren't perfect. We make mistakes like that.
Exactly.
I can hear that now. The guys on Red Eye, they were advocating that women shouldn't have the right to vote. We heard it. We actually heard it. Yeah, they said it. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They don't want women to vote.
Right.
Oh, my gosh.
Wow. Yeah.
There's so much stuff from yesterday. We'll get to the, Jonathan Turley looking at the legal aspects of the Pam Bondi lawsuit against the states.
Right. Yeah.
I guess Tom Holeman saying he's referred AOC to the Department of Justice for potential prosecution. But, New York, Turley was looking at New York saying, no, it's not. He says there's the two things, there's states' rights. Mm-hmm. He goes, but then there's actually impeding an investigation. He goes, New York is actually telling people that they're coming after them.
Right.
They go, that's obstruction of justice at that point.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, wow, this is going to be great. Oh, before we go any further, I want to make sure we at least mention it. The pardons. Blagojevich. Mm-hmm. Sorry, wrong move. He was guilty as hell.
Well, and I don't know why you move on that.
I have no idea.
I don't know what you're looking to get there.
I have no idea. The whole Steve Bannon, it was pointed out that, when he pardoned Steve Bannon, he said, well, he's a great conservative leader. He said, you notice he never talked about the fact that he ripped off MAGA. He ripped off MAGA people that donated to him. And it's just important to know that. And I know people are going to say, but Biden, if Biden did stuff wrong, does not justify Trump doing stuff wrong. And then the whole Adams thing was really interesting when you read the analysis of that the Department of Justice, they did not say, here's why this prosecution is wrong based on this lack of evidence. All they said was the SDNY, Southern District of New York, is doing it for political purposes, but they could not articulate what that was. Now, I don't know all the evidence about Adams, but that isn't the way that you do it.
Right.
When you do it, when you say, not the pardon, excuse me, that I got the, sorry.
Dropping the charges.
You need to be more specific on it. And so I just want to make sure we mention it. I knew it was going to happen. Not going to spend a lot of time on it because, Blagojevich did, serve some time in prison, but trying to make the imagery that he was somehow, as Trump said, set up by some very bad people. No, he was guilty. He was trying to. Well, he was involved in bribes and he wanted to get bribes.
Yeah, and again, it's not. It doesn't accomplish anything for you politically.
No, it doesn't. No. Except you're able to say you have their support, which I'm like,
that doesn't go anywhere.
Doesn't go anywhere.
Doesn't go anywhere. Doesn't go anywhere.
And so, I want to make sure we said that as we're talking about, different stuff. Law enforcement and the Justice Department. But the Justice Department is absolutely correct, though, going after New York. Oh, man. I went to Governor Hochul's, X page, where she said, we're going to fight this because we're right and we've done nothing. Oh, my gosh. She gets blasted. I mean, it's 99 to 1 against.
Right. Yeah.
They're just blasting her. But I still think she leads, in the polling for the next governorship.
No, I think she does.
Yeah.
I think it's why she's, feels very comfortable in making all these moves. She knows she's still got the votes in her state.
But there was some congressional hearings yesterday, and we're going to get to all of it. I mean, Rand Paul, I played part of that audio cut for you, and you burst out laughing. It's like, because it's just they can't win these arguments. I mean, they can't win the arguments on DOGE. And when you see the EPA stuff, $50 billion, you cannot win this.
Well, it's something, again, that we've talked about and conservatives have been concerned about for a long, long time. The rank and file, not the ones on Capitol Hill, because clearly something wasn't done about it. But you had to, even those that on Capitol Hill that wanted to do something about it, it's more than just oversight. You're going to have the will in the White House to get something like this done, clearly. And you just think to yourself, it's like, well, I know I got to go out and organize the garage. And then when you actually get out there, it's like, wow, I didn't know how bad it was. And when the further we get into this DOGE thing, it's so important that these items, every one of these stories about what they're finding is part of the news cycle.
Yeah.
And it's also important that you see the left screaming, restore the funding now. We already did that. But their protests against cutting the waste and fraud works for the GOP.
By the way, I was referring to Bannon because he pleaded guilty the other day.
Right. Yeah, right. Yeah.
He pleaded guilty to ripping off MAGA people who donated to build the wall.
Right.
866-90 Red Eye.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
NY Radio, he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right, this quick audio cut. My favorite thing that happened yesterday was when Trump signed the study on the reciprocal tariffs, and Caitlin Collins, as they weren't asking questions yet, asked a question. Here we go.
Mr. President, you won the White House in part because of high inflation. If your tariffs make prices go up...
Excuse me, we haven't asked you to speak yet, please. Right?
We haven't asked you to speak yet.
Wow.
Please.
Yeah.
Could you please... Trump telling somebody,
right,
liberal in the media, you need to have decorum.
Right, exactly.
That was the best ever.
Wow.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thank you for being here.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's right. Wow.
I love the line that Conan O'Brien posted on, back then it was Twitter, it was years ago. It says, got my chocolates, got my red wine, got some candles, all prepared for President's Day. It's Valentine's Day.
Choose love.
Yeah, choose love. Choose love.
We're going to spend the rest of the show lecturing you on the fact that you should choose love, and not something else.
And make the right decision, guys. Been married 34 years, 1 month and 3 days. But who's counting? Talking to my oldest daughter. Like,
oh, my gosh.
So you got your flowers for Mom? You know, she always says you don't need to spend the money on the flowers. And she stops me and goes, so you're not going to get flowers from Mom? Well, of course I'm going to get flowers. I was just, what? Of course I am. Yeah. It's always fun. And don't try the excuse, well, honey, I celebrate our love every day. That's why I didn't get you anything, because every day is this. No, don't try that.
Yeah, it really doesn't work to say, I'm not going to participate in Valentine's Day because it's something created just by the flower and card industry, and so I'm not going to participate. You're going to lose that argument every time.
There are two kinds of people who say that. People who are alone.
And the Dutch. No, I'm sorry.
and the Dutch. Or people who are about to be alone.
Don't direct it towards me. I send flowers.
No, you choose to be alone.
I send flowers.
I
send flowers.
Do you? Yeah. Just randomly. just send them to somebody. Somebody got them.
I just randomly pick an address and send them flowers.
Yeah.
Who's this psycho that sent me flowers?
Right. Then you get somebody in trouble. It's like, who sent you flowers? I don't know. You don't know who sent you flowers?
I like that. Randomly. Yes, I just randomly send flowers.
Why not? Who do you want them to go to? I don't know. Pick an address. I don't know.
I want to feel like I can participate.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Right.
So So I send flowers because I choose stalking.
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. It's
what a week. I mean, seriously, what a week. I was one of the best things I saw on social media. And it's got different forms, but this is the one that I like the most. And this is, we'll go back one more mention on the Super Bowl halftime show. And this meme was a meme with a video in it also. And it was a meme that says basically, white people don't like the mumbling of Kendrick Lamar. And it goes, then white people like this. And the video starts playing. And it's Pearl Jam.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, even flow. Yeah, exactly.
It's like, oh my gosh, it was so funny.
Or you could throw in Mick Jagger there. Even Ron Wood said one time, I have no idea what the lyrics are to our songs. He actually said that. I don't know.
I remember, and this is when I lived in Florida, when I lived in Navarre, Florida. I remember driving from Navarre to Pensacola to a Japanese restaurant with my former rock co-host on the show, the late Mark Stone. And I'll never forget, he's got a cassette, and he puts it in, and he says to me, all right, this is a new band that's out there, and I want you to see whether you can understand any of the lyrics. And it was REM's first album. And I'm like,
oh, yeah.
I can't figure out.
Right.
And it wasn't even, hey, I want to play you this because this is cool music, or I think you might like this. It was basically.
By the way, do you remember that they called it back then college music?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, college rock, yeah.
Yeah, it's people, I think in our age group, probably remember that. I don't know if you have to be in radio or in music to remember that, but a lot of people don't know that it was there. It wasn't alternative. It wasn't this. It was college music.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't even know. There used to be the college charts of what college radio stations were playing.
Yeah. Right.
See,
Which made it like more hip. Right, because it's a small group of people that listen to it. You mean unpopular? That's,
drugged out college students.
All right. Yeah.
Well, I think about it because that's the first time I ever talked in front of a microphone was at Erie Community College when I went to 2-year college before I, graduated from a 4-year college. Erie Community College, they had a radio station. And I went, wow, this looks interesting. And I'll never forget. I know the first song that I ever played on the radio. Because coming out of the one song, and then it was, that the last DJ had played. And it was what they call, remember the carrier current radio stations, which just basically played in the student union.
Right.
That was it. And you get in the student union, and you get also at some college radio stations in the dorms. And so this one was just a community college. There were no dorms, so it just played in the cafeteria.
Right.
And I can still remember the song ending, and then it was time for me to talk, and I remember the moment of turning on the microphone, and here's what happened. I completely froze. Think about it. When you think about it, what happened, in your youth, that nobody was paying attention to whoever was on the radio in the cafeteria. It was too loud. And here I was too afraid to introduce Death May Be Your Santa Claus by Mott the Hoople.
Right.
And what I think is great is I remember that kind of moment, and it's as crystal clear, and I remember the panic. And then how could you forget, that song title, Mott the Hoople, Death May Be Your Santa Claus.
Right. Exactly.
So
my first was Amarillo by Morning, George Strait.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
who's going to play Highmark Stadium this summer, by the way, in Buffalo with Chris Stapleton.
Oh, really?
In June.
I didn't even know that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I didn't know George Strait traveled that far.
It's
he always does these big Texas shows, It's like, wow, he's going to Buffalo?
Yeah, that'll be they'll block off half it, so probably about 60,000. country's really popular in Buffalo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
People they think Buffalo is New York,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not. It's a Midwestern town.
Well, even in New York City,
Oh, yeah.
you can go,
yeah.
and I've talked to a number of country artists. It's like people would be amazed at how much country is popular, and they love live country shows. Yeah.
It's the last year. Next year will be the last year in the old stadium.
Wow.
Yeah, they move into the new one.
Yeah.
After is it after next year?
After next season, maybe. Yeah.
We're in 2025, right?
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be the 2026, 2027 season.
Okay.
They've got it. If you look at it, I mean, the stadium is the new stadium, which is beautiful. You should see what they've done because people complain, it's an open-air stadium. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I was looking at it. Really is interesting when I'm able to take the fact of the taxpayer dollars going into it, which is tough for me to overcome.
Yeah, right.
But when just looking at the engineering of it, and I was watching the other day, the way that they have the roof shaped and everything else, it makes it so the air will hit it and then go over the top of it and actually create a dome of air.
Mm-hmm.
So if the wind is coming very fast, it actually sort of seals in the entire stadium.
Oh, all right.
I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have wind on the field, and it's going to help keep the heat from the stadium inside the stadium even on cold days. And I went, all right. And, of course, my engineering mind, all right, I've got questions here because part of me doubts that could happen.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see when that stadium's finally built.
if I have the slightest gap between my old door, my front door,
yes,
in my 50-year-old plus house, then the temperature drops in the winter 20 degrees, but they can design this, and it is fascinating how they're designing new stadiums. Though.
In fact, I was going to go up this weekend to see my dad. My dad's been in rehab, but I canceled it because of the snow coming in Saturday and Sunday, and I'm afraid I can't get back. So I'll go up in a couple of weeks, but he's getting out of rehab on Wednesday. He had pneumonia, was in the hospital. So he's really been, what's it been, 6 weeks?
Yeah.
So
our dads had pneumonia at the same time.
Yeah. So
my dad had some other issues going on too that kept him in the hospital for some days. But good to hear that your dad is well enough to get home.
And the drug, my father is not good on any kind of drug at all.
Right.
At all. I mean, antibiotics, whatever. He never has been. But it was, I didn't say much on the air about it, and not because the family asked you or anything. It was just, you're a little fried by it, but, his mind wasn't there. And, I saw it with my mom, and so you're wondering whether it was dementia,
right?
And we're like, dementia doesn't hit that quick. It doesn't hit in 5 days,
right,
like that, because he was, hallucinating and everything else, and
and also infections in the body can bring that on, and there's if you're and sometimes, especially if people don't know this. If you're elderly or even young babies may have pneumonia and not run a fever, but still it can affect, your thinking if your body's working and fighting something so hard, then it can definitely affect the mind.
And one of the things is with my dad. I mean, when the planes crashed, my dad's was a pilot. I mean, he won't be flying anymore. But he was an acrobatic pilot. He did, he went up there and did all the loops and the flips and everything else.
Yeah.
Back in the day. So a very, very good pilot. I flew with him many times. So I brought it up, and I was telling the family that was there, I said, no, I can bring it up. It keeps don't worry about the plane crashing being morbid news. He's thinking, let's get his engineering mind working again.
Yeah.
And so I've been talking to him about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And got into talking to him about the remote. Have you seen some of the remote-controlled airplanes that exist out there?
Yeah, it's insane.
Have you seen the one, what's his name? I can't think of his name. The guy from Atlanta, the movie star, Tyler. I can't think of his name. I just got mind blank. He's got this huge plane. Now, he doesn't run it on the small jet engines. He runs it on the electric engines. But the supersonic, the British Airways supersonic plane, I don't know who owns it or whatever. I know there's one in Germany, but this thing's like 30 feet long. It's a drone.
Yeah.
And so I started talking to my dad about remote-controlled airplanes and things like that to keep his mind busy. And so so he's doing really good.
Good.
Just weak, but again, he's going to be 99 in April. You're weak.
Yeah,
you're Tyler Perry.
Tyler Perry.
It was Tyler Perry fly. He has.
I didn't know he had remote control.
He's got a runway. He's got a runway apparently on his property.
Wow.
And he lands them, and it's like he's got this. I think the one plane he has is like $100,000 remote control airplane. But yeah, so Dad's doing good, and so I'll be back up in the next couple of weeks. He's out on Wednesday, and give him a couple of days, and then I'll be back flying quickly to see him again. But it's been a nasty winter up there. A lot of people are saying it's been a cold winter. It's been a cold winter for us. We're going to have some cold temperatures next week here.
Right. I think the coldest of the season.
Yeah. It's going down to 17 here. Mm-hmm. And it was like, okay, all right, no snow, though. Let's have no snow here.
Right. Yeah. It's in and out of the forecast, depending. So hopefully we won't get any. But, it's for a lot of people, it's been a very cold winter.
Yeah. So Dad's okay.
Good news.
All
That's
right.
Good news.
Some of the stuff going on, some of the congressional hearings this week have been insane. And we got to wrap up the week. And so we got a ton of audio to play. We'll hit on the Justice Department going after New York and other states for it's obstruction of justice.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're going after them for. They're saying you're obstructing justice by informing illegal immigrants and even criminal illegal immigrants that, we've spotted them and know where they are, and you're giving them a warning. You can't do that.
Right.
This is going to be really interesting.
We wondered how far they were going to go.
Yeah.
Because Trump was making the promises. There's no doubt he was going to move on it. And the Democrats were already positioning themselves to resist. How far are they willing to go? Are they willing to break the law?
866-90-RED-EYE.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Owner-operators with authority generally have two options when it comes to sourcing freight. Brokers on the spot market or directly from the source, the shipper. As any trucker with relatively recent experience with spot freight knows, the highs of working the load boards can be really high. On the other side of that coin, however, when the market flips in favor of shippers, it can be tough to keep your business afloat working with brokers. The smallest carriers with direct customers, however, can hang on through tough times or even prosper, as long as demand for their customers' product remains at least somewhat stable. Owner-operators in it for the long haul make direct business with customers a principal goal. Owner-Operator Business 101 is provided by Overdrive's Partners in Business program. Go to overdriveonline.com to the Partners in Business section of the website for more detail on this and many other topics.
Brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Cronin. I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. I'm sorry, I just happened to see our colleague Mark Levin's post yesterday. Congratulations to RFK, who was just confirmed. But keep your hands off my Big Mac and Diet Coke.
I love it. I love it.
I don't remember the last time I had a Big Mac and fries.
I actually had a cheeseburger from McDonald's yesterday. Someone in the family brought a bag of a number of things were in the bag. They were like, "Hey, we have an extra cheeseburger. You want it?" I said, "Yeah."
Yeah, for me,
I don't know if in the back of my mind if I was celebrating RFK Jr. or resisting.
Yeah, you're part of the resistance.
Exactly.
I'm not going to be healthy.
The resistance.
You can make yourself healthy again. I'm not.
I'll say this. Resistance tastes so good.
Well, for me, it's simply a carb thing because of my type 2.
Yeah.
But, I haven't had one maybe in, 5, 6, 7 years.
A Big Mac would take me back. I don't know. It's been years since I've had a Big Mac. So now I'm going to have one this weekend.
I mean, I can have one if I do 20 miles on the bike right afterwards.
Exactly.
All right.
Why don't you ride the bike to McDonald's, right?
Yeah, good idea.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thanks so much for being here. Download our Red Eye Radio app today because after our show ends, after all 5 hours ends,
or pauses,
yeah, because it never ends. It just pauses. It's like a loop. Never ends. I'm not complaining, by the way.
No.
We record the show and then it becomes our podcast. Mm-hmm. So you can listen during the day if you can't listen overnight. So there you go.
Thank you.
All right, this is fascinating because they're not going to win this. This is Bill Melugin on Fox talking about how these sanctuary cities are protecting violent. That releasing illegal immigrants charged with aggravated child rape and other violent crimes, and they're releasing them and purposely not letting ICE know that they exist. By the way, you can't win this. The first one they talk about is Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. You can't win this issue in Massachusetts.
No.
But here it is. Here's Bill Melugin. Here we go.
Well, Dana, it's hard to believe there are any jurisdictions out there that wouldn't cooperate with ICE when it comes to illegal aliens charged with forcibly raping children. But in Massachusetts, it's just routine. Take a look at this case. ICE Boston just announcing they arrested this Guatemalan illegal alien charged in Massachusetts with 3 counts of aggravated child rape and 3 counts of forcible rape of a child. So the question is, why was he on the streets, right? Well, ICE says their detainer request on him was ignored by the Essex County Superior Court due to sanctuary policy. The locals released him into the community on bail without any notice to ICE. In a statement, the director of ICE Boston says in part, quote, Jose Fernando Perez has been charged with some horrific crimes against a minor in our Commonwealth. He is exactly the type of alien we are targeting with our worst first policy. He posed a significant danger to the children of Massachusetts, and we will not tolerate such a threat to our community. ICE Boston also announcing the arrest of this Turkish illegal alien charged in Massachusetts with assault and battery against an intellectually disabled person and witness intimidation. But ICE says their detainer on him was also ignored by the sanctuary city of Somerville. He had also been released into the public. Elsewhere around the U.S., ICE Seattle arrested this Salvadoran illegal alien wanted in his home country for aggravated homicide. Here in Los Angeles, ICE arrested this Guatemalan illegal alien charged with sexual assault and rape with a gun. And in Colorado, the DEA announced their top 10 arrests of illegal immigrants in recent days, including several affiliated with Tren de Aragua and others with egregious crimes like kidnapping, child sexual assault, and fentanyl trafficking. And Dana, I was talking to a law enforcement source in Massachusetts about the child rape case that I referenced, and I asked, there's got to be some sort of a catch here, right? Forget about cooperating with ICE. How does somebody charged with so many counts of aggravated, forcible child rape even get released on bail in the first place? The response I got was, quote, welcome to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Yeah, it's frightening when you go through these cases, and great work by Bill Melugin for bringing a lot of this to the surface. I think Tom Holeman can be credited for a number of things as well along the way. And we've been asking the question, we did after the election. How far are these Democrats willing to go in blocking ICE from doing their job? We saw, Bill Melugin was a part of it, the Aurora, Colorado raid, where it was on the apartment building that had known gang members that were here illegally, and they were tipped off. Holeman is on that and says that they believe they know who's responsible. I believe those people should be brought to justice, not just fired. They should be brought to justice. And any Democrat who is willing to go so far as to break the law, to step in the way and protect violent individuals, should also pay the price legally.
Jonathan Turley had this to say. He predicted a ferocious legal battle will soon play out. He said this yesterday on Fox, that I think the federal government has a strong case here, particularly with regard to one of the provisions in that law, which is a tip-off provision. Under the law, if the federal government makes an inquiry into a suspected illegal alien, that person is then notified by New York and given a heads up.
Wow.
And the feds have said, well, what are you doing? I mean, we're making inquiries because we may want to apprehend this person, and you're giving them a chance to escape. And that's more than refusing to cooperate with the federal government. That's actually frustrating federal law enforcement. So it's going to trigger a ferocious legal battle. Now, he said the state can, on its side, can argue that this violates what is called the anti-commandeering doctrine, and that's a line of cases that says that the federal government cannot commandeer or require the state to carry out federal policies or programs. Now, that's based on states' rights, but this is a very murky area, as you can tell from those sound bites. Illinois and New York are actively trying to frustrate federal law enforcement, and so the federal government is going to court and throwing a flag on this play and saying, you know, you're not allowed to do that. This is not commandeering. This is obstruction of justice on your part. And I think the federal government has a very strong case there, which I agree.
Yeah. I would say, too, well, I don't know about murky, because you either cross the line and break the law or not. These individuals who are authorizing this kind of move in these blue areas.
I think he's saying that it's murky, them trying to use the Commandeering Act in this case, because clearly you're obstructing. That's what I got out of it.
Well, that's what
No,
I mean.
yeah,
It's
right.
it's not murky if you're clearly obstructing. You know, if you're once you cross that line, it becomes very clear. And the question is, you know, if you want to talk, I guess if you want to call anything murky, it would be the question as to how far they're willing to go. What we've been asking.
Yeah. I took it as that it's a bad legal argument.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what he says. I think the federal government has a strong case. But, yeah, you're right. Murky probably is not the word to use.
I would say this entire equation playing out as it is right now is further proof that the Democrats don't care about law and order. They don't care about the safety of your family. They don't. These are people that are willing to protest and get in the way of enforcement that only wants to get in when you look at these moves that are going on now, get the worst criminals that are here illegally out of our country. You have to ask yourself, who would be against that? Well, the Democrats.
Democrats, yeah. Yeah.
This is the type of cause that they're willing to get on board with, and they have been for quite some time. Creating sanctuary policy was all about that. They didn't care about the criminal elements. They don't.
You know, I think they need more than Holeman just talking about it. I think they need to go right, to the daily briefing, and Levitt needs to lay these out. This is what's happening.
Yeah.
Bill Maloogian posted this yesterday. She's doing it on DOGE, but you got to. She might have done it. I didn't see it though, or didn't hear about it, because I think that would have created a little bit of fire. But they need to do it, and then Trump needs to do it too.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was thinking about that because I think Bill Maloogian is doing great work, but if you're not watching Fox, you're not seeing it.
Yeah.
Right. So it needs to happen across the board. It needs to happen with everybody involved. There is I think, a very good team in place in terms of being very proactive on the issues right now and being true surrogates for the agenda. This is one of those key items that the American people, again, it was right up there at the top with inflation and the economy on the polls going into the election. They want this taken care of. The American people are with you. You just have to be very clear and describe what's going on as you're trying to enforce this to the American people over and over again across the board. And again, God bless Bill Maloogian for doing that work, because he does great work. But it has to be beyond that. It has to be others in the administration on a daily basis pointing these things out.
For example, here's Holeman, and I think that they need to bring this up. The executive branch needs to bring it up with Trump and also with the daily briefing. Here's Tom Holeman on AOC and her activities.
Anymore. But Tom, you got AOC out there, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Congresswoman, putting out a webinar, doing a webinar to help illegals avoid, I guess, apprehension, giving tips about how to continue to remain in the country and ultimately game the system.
And I sent an email today to the Deputy Attorney General. At what level is that impediment? Is that impediment? I'm not an attorney. I'm not a prosecutor. Is that impediment? Is that impeding our law enforcement efforts? If so, what are we going to do about it? Is she crossing the line? So I'm working with the Department of Justice and finding out where is that line that they cross. So maybe AOC is going to be in trouble now, but I need the AOG to opine on that, because there's impediment. It's impediment, in my opinion. I'm not a prosecutor, but we need some further guidance on that. But again, if we have to take every federal dollar out of the city, we'll do it. I mean,
very pragmatic, and he lays it out, and he's asking the question and being very clear about this. I'm not the prosecutor. Right. Somebody give us some guidance on this. We want to know if they've crossed the line here legally.
And then you need to promote what she's doing anyway.
Yeah.
Irrespective of whether it breaks the technicality of the law or not.
Exactly. Because it's, again, part of the contrast that President Trump has been pointing out since his inauguration speech. I mean, he was pointing it out before, but I mean, he made it very clear right there with Biden and Kamala sitting right there. He was pointing out, this is what they did, and this is how we're going to fix it. And every day you need to point out what the left is doing versus what you're trying to accomplish. And on this, you win all day. You win all day. Landslide numbers in your favor on this.
It is an 80-20 issue.
Yeah,
and it probably is 80 or even more.
Yeah.
Of an issue when you talk about criminal illegal immigrants. I think that is the one that has reached 80.
Yeah.
I think it's 79, 80, 81% of people. And who are the people that are saying?
I was going to say.
Who are the people? No.
We want to talk to them.
Criminal illegal immigrants should be able to run free in the country.
Well, the day that they were there in Aurora, Colorado, you had protesters right there.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah, wanting to help gang members.
Screaming in ICE. They're wanting to help and protect violent gang members.
Yep.
That's who they are. That's that 20%.
Wow. It's just amazing.
It is.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Yeah, it's really incredible, but they should pound. They should pound on that because that's a no-win.
Yeah,
and they should do it with more than just Holeman on Fox News. Here's a question: is Holeman at all on CNN or MSNBC?
That's a great question. I haven't seen him anywhere else but Fox News,
and maybe Newsmax or
yeah.
I say probably Newsmax he's on.
Yeah,
but is he anywhere besides conservative media? And that's why the president needs to talk about it. And if the president doesn't talk about it, then Levitt needs to bring it up. One of her opening things. Here's what they're doing in New York. Here's what they're doing in Massachusetts. Here's what they're doing in Colorado. These are people charged with violent crimes, child rape, and then continue with all the charges against them. And these states are protecting them.
Yeah.
And you challenge it. And what I like about Levitt is when she digs at the media. A lot of you people out here, some of you right out here right now, you're the ones that defended this lie.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because you can win the arguments, it's what you and I've always talked about. Don't ever be on the defensive. Ever.
No. And
be
you're
on
seeing
the offense.
you're seeing this administration on every level.
Yep.
They're on the offensive, and they should be.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the headline in the Washington Free Beacon about Jeffrey Toobin's joining the New York Times. It's like the headline, renowned masturbator joins the New York Times.
What?
And then the sub-headline, you got to hand it to him. It's Oh, my.
All right, everybody, keep your pants on. Maybe. I don't want to be a Toobin excuse maker, but maybe no one actually ever said that to him in his life. Listen, Jeffrey, keep your pants on, all right? It's like, did we ever say that to him? I don't think I did. Did you? No, I didn't. It's like, oh, okay, that's how it happens.
Liberalism is completely falling apart. I mean, just completely. I mean, it's just boom.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
So many weird things happening. You know why? You know, this is why I think, because we all know the aliens are here, the extraterrestrials are here. We all know that. Come on. We all know it. They're just looking at it going, okay, we didn't expect this. Yeah, everybody's wondering, well, why haven't they come forward? Would you? They get there and it's like, wow. And you.
Well, I don't think what the people in the leftist media get away with, we could never get away with that kind of, well, not that we'd want to get away with that kind of stuff. I want to make this clear. It's not like, I was not saying, why can't we get away with what Jeffrey Toobin did?
We don't wake up going, I wonder how many things I could get away with. and then put something like that on. I don't know. It's because I asked you in the mid-show meeting. I said, well, number one, my gosh, why would you ever do that? What's wrong with you? Number two, if you were caught doing that, why would you ever show your face in public? And number three, why would anybody ever hire you again?
I know. Oh, I just... That's the best headline of the week.
Yeah, it really is. Free Beacon for the win.
You can't find anybody else? I mean, it's like...
Right. Is there that much of a shortage? Yeah.
And inquiring minds always were inquiring, well, you're talking politics on a Zoom call. Why would you?
Yeah. What? How did that? Yeah.
I mean, you and I had oh, wait a minute. You and I had a business Zoom meeting the other day.
Yeah.
But you weren't on video.
No, it's on by phone. Yeah, I don't let people see the inside of my house. Remember the whole, I think they still do it, the whole background thing. You can put the fake background in.
Yeah.
You know?
That's.
Actually, our home office is being used right now for housing our warm weather plants. We bring them in from outside. I have a huge lemon tree in my home office right now. Yeah. So, yeah. No, I don't know how you get to that point.
No.
You know,
I hope you and I never understand how you get to that point.
No, I would never want to understand. I'm not going to even look into that. It's
yeah, I would think at that point I'd probably have to admit to myself, my career is over in the media.
Well, there are so many things in your life that are over at that point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you literally have no shame. So I don't know where you even go with that. You know, I guess you could get a job working with your hands, but you probably
You keep talking. I'm out of this.
Wouldn't you probably?
I'm out of this.
Wouldn't want to. It's not something that Home Depot carries. I just, you know, I don't know. I don't know where you go. I don't know where I go.
This is a family show, but we have to talk about the things that are in the news.
Well, if it's a demented family, it's a family show, yeah. It's and we should say this. This should be an official statement, a public service statement here for our audience. Keep your pants on.
Yes. Remember, there are cameras everywhere,
including your own,
and your own camera on Zoom.
What? Yeah.
Oh, I just love that story.
Weird.
That caught my attention.
Weird.
All right, so let's get to some of the congressional hearings yesterday.
Okay.
And there's been a ton of different hearings from the censorship, the whole censorship industrial complex.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, we'll have some audio coming up on this here in the next hour or so.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. I mean, Shellenberger, Taibbi out there the other day. I mean, some of the things that they're reporting, you forget. And some of the stuff, you realize why they're terrified.
Mm-hmm.
Why the Twitter files, when they were part of the Twitter files, I believe it terrified them. They couldn't believe that the government had got to that point. And we'll have some of that coming up. But first, I want to go to Rand Paul. Rand Paul talking about USAID, the spending, The fact that Democrats were invited to bring out their own witness and would not bring a witness. And it's like, look, you want to take the opposite opinion on this, but they can't. And if you watched any of the congressional hearings this week, none of it is based on what they're finding.
Right. Yeah.
Here's Rand Paul.
Thank you. The accusation or criticism has been made that this is an unserious hearing full of conspiracy theorists. Well, you know, the Democrats were asked to participate like they always are, the same way we were when we were in the minority. They could have brought a witness. They chose not to even bring a witness. I can't conjecture as to why, but maybe it's because it's so embarrassing, the stuff that USAID is spending their money on. Who could possibly be against ending $2 million for sex change surgeries in Guatemala? I mean, who wants to defend that? I haven't heard anybody yet defend the waste and malfeasance that's going over there. $3 million for girl-centric climate change. Maybe there's not a witness here. Maybe it's not serious. But I don't hear anybody explaining why we should continue to do that.
Did I just hear that right? Girl-centric?
Mm-hmm.
Girl-centric climate change?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, one of the other best memes of the week is the Democrats getting on some of the young people working with Elon Musk, that this is absolutely horrendous, yet they were the ones who anointed a 13-year-old as the deity of climate change and the expert on climate change.
Right.
Let's get back to this.
Now, there is a legal question. There is a legal question. If there's $40 billion in USAID and they don't spend it at all and it just sits there, can the president impound it? This is a real question, and it may come to that. But I don't think any court is going to find that the executive branch cannot pause and audit spending. I mean, to crassly say and just to jump this, it's illegal, it's unlawful, it's a tragedy, it's constitutional chaos. Well,
oops, I lost it. It was there and it went away. But you get the point he was trying to bring up.
Sure. And it's, again, when you bring things to the surface, this is what I like about what's happening here is all these items are being talked about. If you're paying attention, if you're concerned about this at all, you know exactly what's going on.
Oh,
What the left hates is, while they scream, there's no transparency. The process here is actually very transparent, and everybody knows it. Everybody can see it.
You notice how that ended yesterday?
Yeah.
The transparent.
Right.
And that's what, this is something that you and I've talked about for the longest time that Republicans are doing and the Trump administration is doing. You don't let anything sit. You pound on it over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
You pound, especially when you have the argument won in a slam dunk way.
Right.
And they're doing it because the transparency. What are you talking about? We have the website. Here's this. We've got this. We're bringing this to you and 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 this to you. And so that argument's gone now. The transparency argument is gone. And you really never could win that with the American public just based on what they saw from Biden.
Right.
But now that died yesterday. I think I have more of Rand Paul here. Here we go.
Okay.
I think it was just a pause in the video.
And just to jump this, it's illegal, it's unlawful, it's a tragedy, it's constitutional chaos. Well, step forward and defend it. We are finding waste and malfeasance. You also have to realize that when you have a social agenda, and your social agenda is, LGBT, well, when you take that to a conservative country that has religious problems with that, and you want to foist it on them and fly flags, what ends up happening is that doesn't increase diplomacy. That actually goes against diplomacy. I don't care what people's views are on any of these subjects. You can have any view on LGBT, but it shouldn't be part of foreign policy to force this on everybody around the world. It just isn't part of government and should never be part of government. But we're only finding this out because we have a president with the courage, including the advice of Elon Musk, including the advice of a lot of us, who have been saying for years, we need to look at USAID and make sure that they aren't committing fraud. Look, this morning, the CFO of FEMA was fired because she's spending $54 million on luxury hotels for illegal aliens. My goodness, there's a lot of Americans struggling to find work. Laken Riley's killer, we flew him and put him up in a luxury hotel in New York. He was there for a few months. We spent all of our money on his meals, and then we flew him to Atlanta. And then he drifted over to Athens, and then he killed Laken Riley. Most Americans think that that's crazy and we shouldn't be doing it, but we are only finding it out because for once we have a president with the courage to say no, to go over there and put a padlock on the door and take the name down. But ultimately there will be a legal question. Can he impound it, or will it have to come back to Congress? I actually frankly think the better way is spend about $30 billion and send $10 billion back, and we do a rescission. There is a method for doing that, and I hope that is what is done. But even on the impoundment question, there are questions exactly, and I don't think it's ever made it all the way to the Supreme Court. There is court precedent on it, but we haven't gotten to that. A pause in funding is an impoundment. A pause in funding to do an audit is just good government, frankly. The question I have for the panel is this, though.
Mr. Chairman, may I just...
Sure. Okay, there it is. But, you know, that's when you think about it, and, you know, he was even talking about, you know, the Congress's role in all of this. Mm-hmm. And, of course, there's a role in Congress when you're talking about spending the money.
Yeah.
None of this will never happen to the seriousness that you see right now that you will get from an executive branch leader like Trump. Right. This has never happened before.
No.
And it may never happen again. And for whether it's Schumer or even Rand Paul to say, you know, this is Congress's responsibility, they may be, Rand Paul may be right on that. And I saw Chuck Schumer say, well, we're all for getting rid of wasteful spending. No, you're not.
No, you're not.
No, you're not. Stop that.
What do they go to first? Well, let's look at defense.
But when he said this is Congress's role, but you haven't done a damn thing about it. Mm-mm. And so to have an audit and to look at things that relate to the executive branch when it comes even to congressional spending and the authority given, as we went through in detail the other day, to the executive branch, where the head of the executive branch is saying, these are all my departments, and they're spending money on this. Congress didn't even appropriate it. Mm-hmm. And with USAID, that was not an organization that was created by Congress.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they just get the money, if Congress just appropriating money and it can go anywhere, well, the president can come in and say, as we brought you the precedent the other day on that this is not being spent efficiently, and this does not promote the foreign policy that I wish to promote.
Right. Yep.
And so that's where you get into the congressional thing that the liberals in Congress believe, okay, we can go to an agency that is not, we can just throw them money, not say where the money is going to go, know that the culture of that organization is against the administration, the current Republican administration, and they can do things on foreign aid and with, because even USAID, as we know, is under the control of the Department of State. Mm-hmm. But even if the Department of State is against it because it's not the president's policy, they can still spend the money anyway, and the president can't do anything about it. That's just flat out wrong.
Right. Right. Well, the liberals love that idea, being able to facilitate their agenda. It's an agenda mill. That's what it is. It's funding everything they want to get done all over the world. This is what they're doing with your money.
866-98-RED-EYE.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You know, one of the signs that the protesters were holding up this week were justice takes action, standing up for our rights. Nobody can explain what their rights are.
Right.
You know, and with everything from the illegal immigration and the states that I believe obstructing justice, and then, just everything that we see with DOGE. And you cannot win this And I'm reading here Noah Rothman from National Review. The left will get the politics it wants. The weekend's CBS News survey found a significant shift in Democratic attitude since January, when Democrats recognized their defeat and were open to changes that might rescue them from the wilderness. Then 54% of the self-described Democrats said they're willing to find common ground with Trump. That evaporated in the intervening weeks. Today, just 35% of Democrat respondents say as much. By contrast, 65% now say Democrats should oppose Trump as much as possible, up from 46% last month. The party elected officials sense a growing restlessness within the ranks. They know their officers are receiving an overwhelming volumes of calls from constituents for a second resistance, and they'd be happy to oblige. But what Democrat voters and activists want to see from their representatives amounts to magical thinking. At least that's what House Minority Leader Jeffries implied. What leverage do we have? They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. It's their government. According to Axios, the frustration of the activist class is displaying towards Democratic office holders is more than mutual. People are ticked off, said one Democratic House staffer in reaction to the efforts by organizations like Move On and Indivisible to nudge the party towards a more theatrical, if not effective, opposition. We'll talk more about that because it's something that we had mentioned earlier in the week. This is what happens. You're going to get this when your party is about dividing and not uniting. That coming up.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Thanks so much for being here this morning. So, yeah, when you see that CBS News survey that found that 54% of self-described Democrats in January said they were willing to try and find some common ground with Trump, that's completely evaporated. Now it's just 35% of respondents say as much. By contrast, 65% of Democrats now oppose Trump, say Democrats should oppose Trump as much as possible, up from 46% last month. One of the most interesting things out there is where the Democratic Party is going to go. And you and I brought the story about the leadership saying they're getting pounded by phone calls now saying, resist, 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 resist. But the fact is, you see, as we've seen the protest, where they're begging people to riot.
Well, that's it. It's, something's not gelling here with these numbers. That CBS survey did. Where is the groundswell? Where is the grassroots effort? Why aren't people responding in a big way? The leadership, the Democrats in office, are screaming. They're radical. And I have no doubt in my mind that the radicals are calling their offices. But is it at the level of what? What'd you say, 64%?
65% are saying now you've got to, of the polling, you now have to challenge Trump. By the way, 65% is still pretty low compared to probably was 99% back in 2017, 2018.
Yeah, if it is that high, it's still pretty low. But again, where's the evidence of that? How's that playing out? Maybe it's something that hasn't happened yet.
I will say this. I've started seeing in the last couple of days Democrat acquaintances that I've known for a long time on social media that are now speaking up. Now, they really haven't been paying attention because they're getting slaughtered when they make an opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they're using a slogan or saying, Trump did this or have something completely out of context. Mm-hmm. So after the election, it's obvious what I'm seeing from Democratic acquaintances I know on social media. they hadn't been paying attention, and they just jumped in with the whole DOGE thing. And again, they don't know. They haven't really been, it's obvious to me they haven't really been paying attention and decided to jump in because they're so frustrated and so angry because everything that they were for in just 3 weeks, 4 weeks on Monday, gone. Just gone. And nothing's happening, with the Democrats. But what they don't understand, and I believe this is probably the 65% of Democrats that live in their own bubble. They live in their own bubble. They really don't know the issues. They really don't care about the issues. They're just being as emotional as possible.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder those calls going to the offices, right, of their representatives. Let's say it is happening in a big way. What's the nature of the calls? Is the nature of the calls, how in the world could you have picked Kamala Harris? Is the nature of the calls, hey, what the hell had been happening for the last 4 years? Look what you did. You got Trump reelected. That's what I want to know. I want to know the nature of what's going on here because, again, something doesn't jive. You're not seeing it, and it could be something that's about to start being more represented in terms of people showing up. As for now, it's still Democrats in office shouting, cursing, doing whatever they're doing, and there hasn't been this massive groundswell. So we'll see.
For example, this is one person I know who's just been quiet for the longest time and now is back, all right? And she puts out the article, the Trump administration set to purchase $400 million worth of Teslas, and she writes, Tesla is set to make out well in the future with government purchases of their vehicles. Well, as we know, that was completely the Biden administration. And the Biden administration are the ones that put out for whatever. I hope they cancel that because armored Tesla vehicles for the military, I don't know where the hell they're practical at all.
Right, exactly.
You and I haven't even talked about it, but
Yeah.
I went, what? But that was the Biden administration, and Tesla was the only bidder. The Biden administration wanted this. Trump didn't exist. This comes all from the Biden administration. They put out the bids. Tesla was the only bid for it.
Yeah.
So you can't make that. But again, she doesn't know that.
Right.
She has no idea. She doesn't care to know that. It's just she's just dumping on it because it's that emotional reaction. Here's the next one. Why do we need to increase the debt limit if they're cutting so much out of the budget? How is increasing the debt ceiling fiscally responsible? So here's somebody who never cared about what the Democrats spent that is doing, and we've done this before, but again, not making statements, just asking questions because they're clueless as to the situation that we're in right now with the economy.
Yeah.
They're completely, she's completely, totally clueless and everything else. This is the one I love. This one. You ready for this? The private jet crash where the landing gear apparently collapsed in that one jet, right? And it hit the other jet. Here it is. Wow, another plane crash. I wonder if something happened to the morale of the air traffic controllers recently.
Has no clue.
No, it has no clue. Has no clue, doesn't care about what caused the plane crash. It doesn't matter. It's just the emotion that she has.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. And then here it's Republicans in Congress want Americans struggling to afford student loans to shell out nearly $200 more each month to fund tax cuts for billionaires. Senator Elizabeth Warren. So she's looking at that. And she writes, so charge kids more, increase the debt and decrease aid for those less fortunate. Where will all the money go? Why increase the debt ceiling if we're getting rid of wasteful spending? But everything's a question mark because she knows she doesn't know anything about the topic at hand.
Yeah, and we've talked about it before. We mentioned it on other issues. But if there is this fear that's building within the rank and file, who's responsible for that? Where does the fear come from?
Democrats.
It comes from the Democrats in office shouting and telling you lies and making sure that you repeat the same lies that they're telling you. You need to repeat those for a lie to live on, it's going to have to be repeated by the rank and file over and over again. And that's what they're counting on you to do. If they know you in your heart have this disdain for Trump, which is the case for tens of millions of people still today, then they can get you to do these things. And also there has to be the Jon Stewart reaction in amongst the rank and file, and that is, what are you guys doing? I'm a Democrat. I'm supporting you. Again, I really want to know the nature of the calls that are going to these offices of their elected reps. What is it? Is it that you guys aren't competent anymore? You can't win, or you ushered in Kamala Harris. She became the nominee. You made all these huge mistakes. Are they angry at you just as much as they are Trump?
Well, you saw what happened when Schumer put out the hotline for wasteful spending and stuff, and just got figured it would be Democrats calling. It was all Republicans blasting the Democrats. But what's interesting is, I have seen now over the last couple of days, well, really over the last week, I've seen liberals coming back to social media again, coming back to X, coming back on, Facebook, especially on Facebook. It's the Democrats now that are also appearing. And my Facebook, news feed isn't really a lot of people doing that. I've got some of my conservative friends that do it every day, but nobody comments on them anymore. There's no comment. It's like people go on Facebook. They don't want to talk politics. But she went on the other day, this person I'm talking about, and she was getting blowback. And then it completely disappeared. And I'm like, did she block anybody who disagreed with her? The problem is when you talk about social media, the left's coming back on social media, but if you block everybody and won't have the argument, you lose any clout. They believe that by just putting out the headline, they can win.
Yeah.
And that people read the headline, and if you attempt to argue, you'll get blocked or whatever. But they don't wish to have the debate, and that's the problem. They're not going to win if they're not willing to have the debate, and they're not going to win if they have the debate.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And that's the problem there. So what you have, it's the same thing that we saw this week where we noticed, the Hitler's gone, except, now the new Hitler is Elon.
Right.
But that really didn't go far. That's sort of now gone because you can't make the case because the Republicans pounded on it. No, you've got, and there have been a number of people to point out all the different private consultants involved in the government and private people involved in the government. It's like, have you people been paying attention? Do you even know what's going on? And that's the thing. When Democrats speak or they become so emotional and reactionary, they blurt out something not knowing that when they blurt it out, they show their complete ignorance on the issue and what's going on in the country and has been going on in the country for a significant period of time, and they get blasted for it.
Right. Yeah. Well, again, I want to see the broader surveys. I think it's worth taking a look at as to where the American people are on illegal immigration.
Well,
because
the CBS poll showed the president won in the CBS poll and the Trafalgar poll won on every issue majorly, except the only one where the president's underwater, and not with China, but with Canada, Mexico, and Europe, is on tariffs.
Right.
And
yeah, again, show me. It's this survey of Democrats as to, let's oppose Trump, we should oppose Trump. I want to look further into that. I really want to. I have no doubt the majority of Democrats are against Trump. There's always that honeymoon period, even though Trump has been here before. There's always that, well, we'll wait and see. But it's, it's always going to be the majority of them are against him. The question is, how motivated are they? How motivated are they? Are they as motivated as they were in 2017? I don't think so.
Here's the question. Is it anger or a sense of hopelessness from your own party?
Well,
which is a difference in
exactly what I was referring to earlier. Yeah. I'd love to know what those calls are to the offices. What are they actually saying? What's their actual concern? Is it with their own party? Oh, my gosh, you guys ushered in Kamala. You let Joe stay for this long. You picked Joe in the first place. All these things where they made major, major, major mistakes.
When you look at this, I think that you see it from the politicians. You see the rage that they have, yet they cannot put up a defense that is based in truth. So they're full of rage, and that's why the cursing has all of a sudden appeared. Mm-hmm. It's F this and F that, and, the D word, mm-hmm. The Jeffrey Toobin word. Mm-hmm. And so I think the same thing with the rank and file. They don't. The most frustrating thing is when your instinct tells you, instinct can be based on propaganda and lies, that why isn't this getting done? But you yourself cannot form an argument against it.
Right.
That produces rage in people. 866-90-RED-EYE.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. But it all comes back to, the rage that you see in the Democrats and all this. They suck on the issues.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're full of rage. They can't sell it to the American public. The American public, independents especially, are moving more, closer, to where the Republicans are and where Trump is. Democrats are, like I said, maybe 65%. Maybe it went up from 35% to 65% that are not willing to work with Trump from January. But the fact is, probably in 2017, that was 95%. And so they don't know what they're emotional nightmares right now because they can't win on the issues. And so they're losing it.
Yeah.
And that's what you've seen this week. That's why all the cursing.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the planet, he is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We are Red Eye Radio, and I know I'm coming out of every break just laughing because it's just what this is. It's all serious work that's being done, but man, is there incredible entertainment in it all.
Yeah,
this
a lot.
This I saw from the Daily Caller.
Mm-hmm.
Jasmine Crocket replaces AOC as the head of the imbecile caucus. Oh God! And we mentioned her, this week. She was cursing up a storm.
Mm-hmm.
She's a child. Seriously, she has the mentality of a child and the ignorance of a child.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier this week, she's my congresswoman.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 1,000 feet away from having a sane representative in Congress. 3 streets away.
Yeah.
3. got to deal with this idiot.
You could move in here to the office and you'd be under Beth Van Dyne, so that would
Here's what she said. Okay, listen to this. I mean, listen to the childishness of all this.
All right.
So name one thing y'all have seen about J.D. Vance and what he is up to. I was watching clips of Trump and Elon in the Oval Office and thought, this is weird. But even more odd is that he clearly has a partner in crime. It just doesn't seem to be the flunky that he ran with. J.D. Vance is over in Europe for the Artificial Intelligence Action Summit in Paris.
Right. Yeah.
He gave his first international speech.
Right.
She doesn't even know that. She's completely clueless. The ignorance and the stupidity in Representative Crocket, really, I understand why the Daily Caller now has said she has replaced AOC as the leader of the imbecile caucus because she is one.
Yeah. Yeah. She really is.
I mean, seriously, you're dealing with children. These are children. They have the mentality of a child. They have the mentality, they have the debate points, and they have the ignorance of a child.
Yeah. They really do.
Just amazing.
They really do.
It's like no clue. And then we'll put a wedge. This is like a schoolgirl. Let's put a wedge. Let's put a wedge between those two people. I'm a schoolgirl. I'm a mean girl.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. We may call her Mean Girl Crocket from now on.
Right.
I'm a mean girl. Let's put a wedge in between. I'm going to put out that where is J.D. Vance? You know, look at it. Trump has found, well, oh, man. Remember George Costanza had a summer, he had a summer, whatever, a pal that wasn't Jerry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, right.
It was the guy who sold Jerry the van. I can't remember the guy's name. He's a comedian, though.
Mm.
And he sold Jerry the van, and he was like, that's what he said. That George said that he was the summer you because Jerry wasn't around,
Yeah.
so
Right.
that's what it was. And so, but this is like trying to, okay, I'm going to put out this tweet and say that Trump just isn't into J.D. Vance anymore, and now it's Elon, not even understanding where J.D. Vance is.
Yeah, I love the clueless attacks that go nowhere.
I know.
You know, I saw somebody post the other day, I love hearing people tell lies when I know the truth.
I like that, yeah.
You know, as they sit there and lie to you, you know the truth. Well, this is just a clueless attack when you know what's actually going on, listening to her babble.
But you just brought up a point where we talk about how you deal with children. And not even children, but pathological liars.
Mm-hmm.
I once worked for a pathological liar.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody knew this person was a pathological liar.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that worked for this person knew that this person was a pathological liar.
Right.
Everybody talked behind this person's back.
Right.
Who was the boss.
Mm-hmm.
But was an absolute pathological, lied about everything.
Right.
And everybody knew it. He did not know that everybody knew it.
Yeah. Right.
He walked around in his
Thought
own
he was getting away with it.
Yeah, he walked around in his own bubble like, I'm getting away with this. I'm getting away.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody knew. And I went, well, that's like a child. Now, this was an adult man. But children do the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Parents know. All right. They're lying. I'm not going to call them on it yet. Let them dig a bigger hole.
I heard a guy on the radio the other day claim he was with Aerosmith. And everybody knows it's not true.
Watch it now.
Hmm?
You're going to get yourself in trouble.
What?
Claiming you're one thing when you weren't.
Hmm.
Remember the Navy SEAL? Remember the
That's why
incident?
the whole Navy SEAL incident is why it changed it to Aerosmith. I thought, who's going to care Aerosmith? There's no, it's stolen valor is a real thing. Stolen rock and roll valor is not.
Well, the funny thing is, obviously, everyone knew, because you were trying to make the case that I've never been a Navy SEAL.
It's laughable that I could be a Navy SEAL was the whole
it was laughable.
point of the joke, but with my dry delivery, a nice gentleman actually called and then as part of his feedback and comments said, listen, I forget which one of you was a Navy SEAL, and it hit me. Oh, my gosh, I need to reel that in.
Yeah, your intent was not stolen valor.
No, it was not. It was not. It was comedy.
It was an
absurd joke.
An absurd comedy.
Yeah, the most absurd. Right. It's and then people go, I don't know. I could believe he would be an Aerosmith for a minute. Joe Perry left for a few minutes. It is so entertaining watching the left just fire off. It's just random firing off. Boom, boom, boom. Crockett's one of them. But it's all of them that just throw these things out there and they have no clue. Or they do have a clue and they're lying. It's one of the two. And I think the base probably, going back to what we were talking about last hour, the base is probably pretty worked up. But again, I wonder who it's aimed at. It's a given that they're not Trump fans, but their base has to be upset with the lack of performance by the people they support.
But here's an example. Was it Worcester, Massachusetts? Remember, became a transgender sanctuary.
Right.
What the hell are you talking about?
Right.
And
what does that even mean?
Yeah, what does that even mean? And they're screaming at a city hall meeting. It's like, well, you can live everywhere.
Right.
What do you mean sanctuary? Are you doing something illegal?
Right.
What is a sanctuary? And I'm like,
living as a transgender is not illegal.
Yeah.
But it's a new virtue signaling.
Right. It's like, well, we're a sanctuary city for transgenders, which means
what?
I don't even know what that means, but it's sort of, to me, how I received it was, you're just raging.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're going to come up with something symbolic that means nothing, and then we'll feel satisfied with our virtue signaling.
Well, sanctuary city policy for illegals is a lot of virtue signaling. Remember, you had a number of Democrats when who was the first to say, well, we should just take the ones that are here and move them all to sanctuary city before Greg Abbott actually did it. He didn't move anybody, by the way. They voluntarily got on those buses.
Right.
But before he even implemented that program, they were talking about that. And I remember it was liberals, Hollywood types, share. Well, we can't do that. How would we take care of them all? We don't have the facilities. We don't have the money to take care of them all. It's all for show.
Well, does.
Yeah, I support this. I support that. Yeah. Well, she's been in show business 124 years.
And no exaggeration.
No. I don't have to lie to get my point across like liberals do.
Hey, young people won't know.
Exactly.
I Got You, Babe was a hit in 1926.
Right, exactly. The Roaring '20s. It's part of what created the Roaring '20s. Don't you dare Google that. It's so interesting.
Here's a question.
What?
Her hit songs, could they be played today?
Her solo stuff?
Half-Breed, Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves.
Wow. Who used the word tramp? When's the last time that happened? You use that word and they'll say, do you mean Trump? Did you mean to say Trump? What is a tramp? They don't know what a tramp is. Jeffrey Toobin does. Nobody else knows what a tramp is.
I do remember, though, when Cher said that. It was like, we can't for this. Yeah,
it's all virtue signaling. They support it. Oh, I support it. I support it. All right. When it comes to doing the deed and actually this playing out the way that it should have played out. Well, remember the mayor in D.C. We're not equipped for this. They need to go back to Texas.
Yes.
The mayor of Del Rio, by the way, at that time was a Democrat and was saying, he didn't respond to her directly, but he's screaming, we don't have, this is a town of 32,000 people. And then you've got 10,000 coming across the international bridge. All these things of virtue signaling for the left. They really want to, their protest signs are dry erase boards. That's what they are. What's the cause today? They don't even know the cause. Just write it on there, erase what was there yesterday. The cause for today is this, and then go out there and shout. What are you angry about? Do you actually know what you're angry about? And even if you can say out loud what you're angry about, can you actually explain what's going on? Do you really know what's going on? That's why I want to get into the survey of these Democrats. Not even the survey. This thought that, or it was reported that they're calling the offices of their elected representatives, and you should oppose Trump, do something, blah, blah, blah. There needs to be, I'd like to know more about that. Well, I really want to know where the ranking, because on illegal immigration,
I'll show you where
we know where people are overall.
Here's an example. I saw this on social media from a liberal. Mm-hmm. Listen, if a bad president can come in and take away our rights, and we're dependent on a good president replacing them in 4 years to give us back our rights, then we do not have any rights. If politicians can take or distribute them, then they're not inalienable, and they're not rights. We don't have inalienable rights. We have conditioned privileges divvied out according to the whims of whoever currently holds the reins. And if we want to have actual rights, then we must build a system in which no one has the power to take them away to begin with. What are they talking about?
What rights are they talking about?
And as the most supposed to, you're not talking about rights. You're talking about getting stuff.
Yeah.
You want stuff. Mm-hmm. And if you can't get stuff, you view that as rights. What right is Trump taking away? They don't everything. There is no specifics coming from them. They can't give specifics. They throw out stuff like that. People go, yeah. And then you say, well, explain it. Well, you're a Nazi.
Well, that's
Excuse me. You're an Elon.
Yeah.
You Elon, you?
You're a racist. You're a Nazi. You're an Elon.
Right. But they can't explain it. They throw out these things, and that's where they are right now. And, look at their protest signs. You're like, what the hell does that even mean? We did one of them earlier. What does that even mean?
Right.
What rights are you talking about? Mm-hmm. And they can't explain it.
They have no clue.
They have no clue. None.
During the hearing.
I mean,
restore the funding. And then
great.
It was pointed out right then and there that funding has already been restored.
Yeah. They were protesting funding that was restored within a day.
They have no clue.
No, they don't even know they don't know what they're protesting anymore. They don't know what they're angry about anymore. They throw out these generic terms. They can't be specific on anything. No wonder they're cursing.
Well, it's all of the people, probably without exception, that live in Crockett's district. They're clearly clueless. Right?
Mm-hmm. I'm just 1,000 feet inside our district.
Well, then it shouldn't be hard to move.
I'll be looking. I love where I live. I'll be looking for a home 4 blocks away from where I currently live.
Right. Then they redraw the district map. Dang it!
Exactly. Yes.
Right after you move.
We got to gerrymander that a little bit here. Let's move it over here.
Right. Well, years ago,
3 streets away from being in a Republican
remember,
district.
Years ago, you and I had the same representative.
Yeah.
Because it cut across the DFW area, that district did. And of course, that's
was I
redone.
living in
You were living where you're living now.
Oh, was I? Okay.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been redrawn so many times.
Yeah.
So because we have so many people moving here.
Yeah, we do.
It's crazy.
It is. 866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at JJ Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on speed and space management. In order to manage speed, you need to understand the 4 factors involved in stopping a vehicle. Perception distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time you see a hazard until your brain recognizes it. The perception time for an alert driver is approximately 3/4 of a second. Reaction distance is the distance a vehicle travels from the time your brain tells your foot to move from the accelerator until your foot hits the brake pedal. The average driver has a reaction time of 3/4 of a second. Brake lag distance also needs to be taken into account. When operating a vehicle with air brakes, it takes about half a second for the mechanical operation to take place. Finally, braking distance is the distance it takes a vehicle to stop once the brakes are applied. Braking distance is affected by the weight, length, and speed of the vehicle, as well as road condition. This tip was brought to you by JJ Keller and Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90 Red Eye on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. You know, it's great to have more right-leaning reporters in there to balance it up at the White House press briefings. Here's one. I think this is from yesterday. No, this is from 2 days ago, I believe. Here we go.
Back to DOGE just for a second. Earlier, the subcommittee headed by Chairman Marjorie Taylor Greene, her and her staff discovered $2.7 trillion in improper payments Medicare, Medicaid, overseas, to people who should not have gotten it. Some of this room might have missed that press conference. Can you elaborate on what the president is thinking at this point?
Well, again, that's another example. There's a very long list of the fraud, waste, and abuse that DOGE is identifying on a daily basis.
By the way, if they don't get in there to be able to look at those payments, which is why the left doesn't want them in there, there's no way they get to know this kind of stuff.
Right, exactly.
You get to find out where it's going and what's happening when you get to look at it. But if they're saying you can't get involved, it's all sensitive information, then you can never find out what the fraud is.
Right, exactly. All of these items have to be discovered. And I love what's going on. I love this whole debate.
Catch all 5 hours of the show live every night on the Red Eye Radio app. Available in the App Store. Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Welcome and good morning. Thanks for being here. All right, you ready for this?
All right,
this
what
is
do you got?
this great audio from Morning Joe. Morning Joe on with Representative Mike Lawler, Republican from New York.
Okay.
And he's been on before. They actually have civil conversations. But he's bringing up DOGE and what he discovered. And it's like, you really can't argue it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. You can't argue it. And here's one of the perfect examples with one of the biggest liberals out there. Sorry, when he calls himself a conservative, Morning Joe is not a conservative.
No.
He does it all the time. Well, being the conservative on the panel, shut up.
Yeah, no, you're not.
Conservative. All right, here we go. Here's part of this discussion.
But then you look at some of the expenditures by USAID. For instance, I uncovered over $3 million to a rap artist in Gaza producing anti-Israel, anti-Semitic songs. Is that the best use of American taxpayer dollars? I would venture not. And so one of the things that we're going to do in this hearing tomorrow, obviously, is go through what actually is the role of USAID, what should they be focused on, and frankly, what have they been focused on? And I think one of the things to keep in mind, Joe, in other parts of the world, some of the woke ideology that USAID was promoting is not welcomed by the people or the governments, and it actually can be counterproductive to what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
So I think one of the things we need to recognize.
That's what you guys do, though. Like, that's what you go through in subcommittees. It's not like some radical Berkeley professor said, hey, let's give $3 billion to a rap artist in Gaza who's going to do anti-American and anti-Israel.
No, the Biden administration did. That's part of the problem here.
But you have Congress, though, who funds USAID. So shouldn't you all be making these calls instead of Elon Musk?
But Joe, one thing I will tell you, and you as a former member of Congress certainly understand this, in the separation of powers, sometimes when you're asking for information, the executive branch doesn't want to share it. We had numerous hearings last Congress. We sent numerous letters to Samantha Power, to USAID, requesting more information. And for obvious reasons, they didn't want to provide it. What you've seen in the last few weeks, frankly, while some people may object, you certainly understand, Joe, oftentimes government moves at a glacial pace. And so, yes, we have seen things move very rapidly, but oftentimes when you're making an omelet, you got to crack a few eggs. And I do think that, unfortunately, is necessary as we're actually trying to uncover what these agencies and departments are doing, what they're spending money on, and is it in keeping with the United States mission?
By the way, there's nothing unfortunately with it. He said, unfortunately, we have to, you crack a few eggs. Well, there's nothing unfortunate with what's going on here at all.
In fact, that's indicative of what has happened in the past with the idea, and John Boehner said it, we don't like messy. The GOP didn't like messy. They didn't want messy. They didn't care to look. Previous Republican presidents didn't care to look at the wasteful spending and fraud and everything and take it seriously. They would put out these reports and everything else. Oh, there's fraud. Oh, that's bad. You get into the weeds, you've got to roll your sleeves up and go to work. It's not unfortunate. It should be a given. It should be expected by every administration to expose every dime the taxpayer money is being spent on. Everything.
Well, and you and I were talking about this during the break when we played that audio cut of the press briefing the other day when the reporter brought up, and obviously it's a reporter that actually said, this was announced in Congress, but you haven't announced this here, the $2.7 million in waste, in fraud and waste, even going to foreign countries, and that's over a period of years. By the way, that's not in 1 year, the $2.7 trillion.
Right.
It's over a period of years for Social Security and Medicare that foreign actors are getting. There's people that are collecting that are 150 years old. Wow. It's amazing. They must have a interesting lifestyle at that age.
Yeah, I want what they're taking.
And then she addressed it. But that's the beauty now of the White House press corps. It's not every single question comes from a liberal bent, and then there's Pete Ducey in the New York Post. And that's really it.
Yeah,
you've got bloggers in there now, and so you've got a lot of people. And that reporter, I don't know who it was, wanted to know or wanted to promote the fact that people here and people, the press here and the people watching this need to know this because it was only over here. And so I'd like you to talk about it here in this particular setting. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
No, I love it. I love it. It's, again, we talk about bringing each of these items to the surface of what's going on, but the conversation, the communication is key. The administration needs to keep doing what they're doing and keep it out there in the public eye because it's brought about the debate, and the debate needs to be, it's always worthy. I just don't know. My question is, how much are they actually going to find?
Well, this is interesting. This isn't exactly on well, it is on DOGE, but this came from Michael Shellenberger, and this is like, whoa. And he wrote, last week we reported that the CIA and the USAID-run front group, OCCRP, were behind Trump's 2019 impeachment. Now a new investigation finds that USAID's OCCRP also drove the Trump-Russia collusion. And here is that's from Michael Shellenberger, not a Trump fan, as we all know, but part of the Twitter files. And as we said, I believe that they actually were frightened when they found out how wrapped up the FBI was in the Hunter Biden laptop situation.
Right.
But here he is. This is him testifying before Congress the other day. And we'll have it just here in a moment. Just a slight delay.
You say in your testimony PSYOP tactics being used by the U.S. and UK military against the American people. That is really scary stuff reading that. Could you elaborate? Because I think the American people need to hear, they need to hear about this.
Yeah, we now know what happened, which is that basically after the war on terror, the United States used counterterrorism, counterinsurgency, counterpopulism tactics first in the Middle East as part of the Arab Spring uprisings, then in the Eastern Europe as part of the color revolutions, using social media to foment revolutions against places that we wanted regime change, and then using censorship in places to repress conflicting opinion in places that we were trying to stabilize. Those tactics were then turned against the American people after the populist revolutions of 2016. First, you saw Russiagate, the idea, this wild conspiracy theory that President Trump was somehow controlled through a sex blackmail operation by the Russians. But then we also saw a very elaborate effort to do exactly what they had done abroad, creating small committees of experts to decide what the truth was and demand censorship on the basis of it. But I also mentioned there's also these proactive influence operations, the most dramatic of which is the Hunter Biden laptop, severely illegal, but we also saw the mobilization of the intelligence community. And now in the latest article that we published today, we have documented that the Agency for International Development has overseen basically a takeover over the last decade and a half of independent investigative journalism in Europe and around the world through OCCRP and supposedly independent journalism organizations with an eye to basically controlling the information and controlling the major news media that do investigative journalism.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for the work that you have done over the last couple of Congresses on this issue.
Mr. Shellenberger, can you explain how you traced USAID funding that served as the basis for whistleblower report in 2019, which led to the impeachment of President Trump?
Sure. Well, you may remember that the so-called whistleblowers in the White House was actually a CIA analyst. And in that whistleblower's complaint, which led to the impeachment, one of the central pieces of evidence was created by a USAID-funded and controlled organization called the OCCRP. And we have another piece out today about how it participated in the Russiagate hoax as well, creating essentially very important information leading to that. So, you have in USAID a much larger fund of money and a much broader strategy for information control that included censorship, but also, as I mentioned, taking control of investigative journalism really worldwide. Its ambitions were, amazing. So, yeah, that's a down by DOGE. I thought that was completely appropriate. If there's something in there that it was doing that's valuable, then you could refund it later. But my view, same thing with CISA, death penalty for organizations that participated in violations of the First Amendment like CISA. Cybersecurity is an extremely important function. It shouldn't be contaminated and undermined by censorship activities.
Well, I think it's always been known that our government has funded the change in administrations, if we can say it politely, of other governments. But isn't it borderline treason when the taxpayer when organizations entrusted with protecting our country are now undermining our own government?
Absolutely. If you're trying to do regime change, illegal, if you're weaponizing DHS, FBI, CISA, that's that's treasonous regime change activities redirected, that you developed abroad, that we developed abroad for regime change, directed against the American people and our representatives. I mean, it's shocking, and we still haven't dealt with it as a country.
Mr. Shellenberger, you mentioned that USAID, which has been in the news of late, spending taxpayer money on all kinds of stupid things, is also involved in the censorship effort. I want you to just elaborate on that a little bit, because this is going on as we speak. I want you to elaborate on that for the committee, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to understand that USAID viewed this very holistically. And it's important, if you look at the Hunter Biden laptop case, which is an extremely important case to understand, because the FBI was weaponized, then it weaponized the Aspen Institute to brainwash the entire media. It wasn't just that they censored it. It was that they changed the perception of the laptop. They created the perception that it was something other than what it obviously was. And that's what these guys are trying to do. These are called information operations, and USAID has been in the process of taking over so-called independent investigative journalism around the world, and at the same time then training NGOs how to demand censorship. For example, Mr. Aaron's organization has been working to train organizations to so-called flag misinformation behind the scenes. By the way, it's one thing to criticize somebody publicly, which we should all be engaged in.
Yeah.
But this thing where you're skulking around,
you do that all the
and
time.
Secretly, yeah, that's what open democracy is. This thing of going out and like secretly flagging information behind the scenes and demanding censorship, that's completely an abomination. That is not what our democracy is about.
I just want to be clear. You're saying USAID, your investigation, is now engaged in this pre-bunking kind of concept and process that they did with the laptop story in the fall of 2020.
And it's the exact same approach as well, where often what they're doing, for example, with USAID, OCCRP, is that they're leaking intelligence from the intelligence agencies and not like WikiLeaks, where they just dumped it, I think, probably too much without the proper redactions, but they're strategically leaking it and then manipulating places like The Guardian and the New York Times to publish certain stories and control the whole investigative news process.
And we saw this from Yoel Roth's testimony. He testified during these weekly meetings that federal law enforcement communicated to us there was going to be hack and leak operations before the presidential election, likely in October. We had these so that what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and then they said here who it's going to involve, that there were rumors that the hack and leak operation would involve Hunter Biden.
It's scary what Shellenberger has pointed out here on so many levels, because it's under the guise of national security, but using those tactics that were developed for national security in order to control information and control the minds of the American public and the DOJ.
In order to change the outcome of an election.
Exactly. And the DOJ weaponizing, again, under the guise of justice. And it's quite the opposite when you're going after the American people over and over again. This is scary stuff, and great work by Michael Shellenberger.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-EYE.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Download our Red Eye Radio app today. Our show ends. We have a 5-hour show. It ends at 5 a.m. Central Time, 6 a.m. Eastern Time. And after that, if you can't listen to the whole show, you can listen to us on our app. And if you can't get us on one of our great radio stations while the show is being broadcast live, you can listen also on our Red Eye Radio app all 5 hours.
And we thank you.
Coming up, all the audio cuts that we're playing about USAID and where the money is going, and the whole Michael Shellenberger thing, that USAID and an offshoot group really were the ones that were pushing the Russia collusion hoax.
Right.
And were behind the impeachment.
Right.
The first impeachment of Trump.
Exactly.
We'll get to that coming up.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.